Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am super excited about our guest today, Rachel Alexandria. So we tried this a while ago, and the universe just wasn't allowing it to happen. So today is our redo. And Rachel is just awesome in so many different things, and I'm just going to let her tell you all about it. But thank you for joining us. And remember to see those little things under there. Like, share, subscribe. There's a little bell. Click the little bell. Follow her. And so here we go. Hey there.
Hi. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so glad that we finally got this to work.
Yeah. So shall I tell people about who I am?
I mean, you can start. I was going to start by asking, like how you've been, and to welcome you on. Like, people don't know that we're weirdos, so and we own that shit. No, we're in a little online pod called The Weirdos, and we're not weird. We're just a lot of fun and woo and a little weird. But we really have a lot of fun. And we all connect on this different level, I think. So it's pretty exciting. And like I said, we've known each other for a while, and it's always lovely seeing you. So welcome. I'd say to my living room, but it's my office. So
thank you.
So tell us about you.
Okay. So I'm Rachel Alexandria, and I am a former psychotherapist turned soul medic. So there's the woo and the slightly weird for you. And what I do is I help high performers clean up their secret messes. So I do that through concierge care for the soul and the psyche, helping high performers clean up those secret messes so that they can feel like internal peace and self-love while doing their big work in the world.
See, that is so, just hearing you say that it just feels so good. So what made you switch from psychotherapist to
soul medic?
Soul medic.
Oof. Well, it was kind of happening at the same time. I didn't have a way of explaining what I do and who I am. I went back to school to get my psychotherapy degree, and at the same time that I was getting that master's degree, Spirit came knocking, like, "Hello, remember who you actually are, what you're here for?" Which I was like, "What are you talking about? Wait, what? Yes, no, I don't know." So that was
that was excellent. Can you do that again? That was awesome.
I can if you want to.
I mean,
that's the abridged Shakespeare version, right? Yes, no,
You're missing the skull. We need
wherefore, why?
Okay.
So I spent 8 years as a licensed therapist at the same time as learning how to apply my natural tendency for intuitive / psychic stuff and energy healing and vocal toning, all of which helping people to shift how they feel in a very short amount of time. So that was happening simultaneously, but I was kind of applying them somewhat separately. Like, here's my room for therapy. Here's my room for woo-woo stuff. And eventually they kind of blended because people don't really care how you're helping them. They just want you to help them for the most part. If they like you, then which modality you're using isn't really what people care about.
Right.
And then I was, seeking a path to sustainability in my practice, like to making enough money that I was actually like paying all my bills and paying off debt, because grad school is expensive. And I just got this clarity that I needed to shift how I work to more concierge care, and that I really wanted to. So this is like a funny thing I don't always share. And if you've ever seen that movie Hitch, you know
No.
that movie with Will Smith? Okay. There's a movie called Hitch with Will Smith, and it was really, really, really popular at the time. And there's a side character that's kind of consequential to the plot, but not somebody who appears in the movie very much. She's this like very rich trust fund, or I don't remember if she started her own company or if she has a trust fund, but she's super like uber wealthy. And part of the side plot is that she's kind of being taken advantage to and like steered by all these corporate advisors who don't really have her best at heart. And she has ideas, but they kind of shut her down. And this other guy comes in and wants to like help her hear her own voice. He's in love with her, but he's like, no, she should get to, be in her own power. And I was like, that's the kind of client I want to work with. I want to work with those people who have a lot of power and privilege, but for one reason or another are shut down to their inner voice, or they haven't been able to fully develop that and listen to themselves in that way. Usually it turns out because they had a personality disordered or otherwise emotionally dysfunctional parent. So I shifted how I worked and really became concierge care for people like that.
Interesting. And, we talk about being in our own power. And the way that I think that word is so misused, right? There's like power, like rich and powerful and blah, blah, blah. But there's also power, which is power over self, right? And how we're perceived, how we walk into a room, how we use our gifts, right? I think there's a lot of that, but I also think that the power that we have to do good. I think a lot of people, not a lot, hopefully not a lot, of people that are in a position to be able to help, to be able to use that power for good and to help others, I think is huge. And I think a lot of people either don't recognize it in themselves, or they don't know. Like they don't know that it's there.
Yeah. I find that a lot of people I have worked with in all different formats, whether it's individual clients or in family constellations, workshops, or anything, people really don't have good training on hearing their internal yes and their internal no, and then expressing it in a way that's not about drama, but that's about clarity and power. So
More intuitive.
Yeah.
Like what's your yes, what's your no,
and being able to say so, like just telling people that's as close as I want you.
Ooh.
Right? Like just being able to say that please stop there. This is where I hold a boundary. We have a hard time with that because we weren't trained,
No.
We didn't receive that training unless you got it in your family and had a particularly healthy and emotionally literate and available.
Oh no, because it's like we're going to touch the cheek, we're going to come behind you and hold you and hug you, and it's like, no, I don't want you. Like, don't touch me. But that was not a thing. It was like they're the adult. If they want to hug you, if they want to, whatever, like suck it up. And now it's like,
and that brings up when you said power and like having a different experience of power. There's a difference between people who use power over others versus power with others.
I like that.
So adults are exercising power over children when they're doing that,
Right.
as opposed to power with, where you say, I would like to hug you. Would you like to have a hug?
Right.
Right? So you're using your
Or are
authority and
you
your
okay if
power.
I hug you? Like, is it
Yeah.
okay if I hug you?
Mhm.
Funny story. Well, I have a couple funny stories about that, but I was at I won an award earlier this year, and I was at the function, and there was this woman who I thought was somebody else, but from the back she looked exactly like her. And
Yeah.
I just was like, hello. And I gave her a hug, and she turned around, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought that, you were Bally. Like, oh my God. And so she was like, no. And I was like, I don't go around hugging random people. Like I was, and she just started like laughing. She's like, you're fine. So then, about an hour later, the awards were over, and then we were all just milling around, and I saw her, and I was like, are you okay if I give you a hug? And she just started laughing. So I gave her a hug. But it is like a permission thing, right? I mean, it's like a boundary thing, and people respecting your boundaries. And the other thing, I was in Germany last year, and whenever I go away, I always forget something at home. It is like, and my wife is like, it's because you need to go shopping. And I'm like, no, I like literally did not want to drive 2 hours to go to Cologne from Frankfurt to buy a mouse at the Apple store. Didn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I drove to the Apple store, and I get there, and there's one mouse for 139 euros, and there's another mouse for 89 euros. And one was black and one was white.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk over to the, Apple guy, and I said, hey, and I was I was going to go like as far as we're apart, but no one can see that. I had a good enough distance between us that was comfortable for me. So I said, excuse me, what's the difference in the two mice? This one is 139 and this one is 89. And he literally stepped right here, like right in front of my face, and went, the difference is that, and I went, nope. And I pushed him back, arm's length. And he just looked at me and he went, American. And I was like, yeah. I was like, do not come any closer than this. Because in Germany, they really like they have no sense of personal space. And it's not a bad thing. That's just what their culture is and how they are. And so, and that's great, but that's not mine. So I held up. And the only difference was the color. I was like, seriously? So $50 more for black? And he went to step in again, and he went, oh, and he remembered though, right? And he backed up, and he was like, yes. And I was like, okay. So I gave him the white mouse, and I said, I will take that one. But it was just and any store that I was in Germany, like I went to buy an umbrella. And this is my wife's favorite story. I went to buy an umbrella, and the first one I bought wasn't automatic, and it was raining outside. So I wanted an automatic one. So I said, you know what? I thought I wanted this one, but I'd like that automatic one instead. And he comes from around the counter, and he's like, literally right here. He goes, let me show you how to use it. And I went, I know how to use an umbrella. I have one at home. And he said, no. And he stepped in my space again. He goes, you need to, it's different. And I went, please stay there. And this guy just wouldn't. So finally I took the umbrella out of his hand, and I was like, I got this. Just don't let me pay for it. I was really pissed off. Like I almost was going to go somewhere else and buy an umbrella, but it started raining really hard. And I was like, I need a fucking umbrella now. So I bought it. But anyway, a long story to, just kind of to get to boundaries. Cause that's like you're saying, the power to be like, no, I don't want you to hug me, or I don't feel comfortable with you coming from behind me and hugging me, or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. So, yeah. So what did you do before this?
Oh, wow. Before I was a therapist?
Yeah.
Would have been almost 20 years ago. Yeah. I had just finished a master's degree in poetry. So I have a Master of Fine Arts in Poetry.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and just for fun, apparently. And
Apparently.
I was like, I
Oh
don't know what I want
man,
to do with my life.
that doesn't sound good.
What doesn't sound good?
Well, you're like, you spent all this money on a master's and you're like, apparently for fun.
Fortunately, that one wasn't very expensive because that program was one where you get a teaching stipend. So I was teaching
Oh,
technical writing I was a graduate teacher.
nice.
So technical writing and introduction to poetry and things like that. So that one wasn't too bad. And it was one of those organizations where the lead of the program really gave people a way to walk through, here's what you do to make it the least expensive and become a resident of this state by the second year so that you're in-state tuition. And yeah, that was nice. So, but yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just wanted to change my life. And so I thought, well, I'll go to graduate school. Well, this is the thing that I am most likely to get into a program for. So I had my poetry degree and I thought I was going to work in technical writing, but this was like 2002 when I graduated and the economy was tanked because we just had 9/11. So I went back to doing what I had done just out of college, which was admin assistant work. So
Wow.
that's what I did for a few years. And then my husband was like, what are you doing with your life? You don't care about, I was working for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and which, sounds super fun and interesting, but my job was not. It was not any of that. It was not fun and interesting. It was very boring. I was working for an IT shop inside of that. Then they
Wow.
supported the scientists. So my husband was like, you don't care about this job and it doesn't pay you that well. Maybe at least one of those things should be better. So that's why I did a lot of soul searching and was like, I really want, I just had to confront, what I really feel drawn to is talking to people and helping them see that they don't have to suffer in some of the ways they are suffering. And I'm just like, well, I pretty much have to go back to school for that. No one's going to let me just do that without some kind of training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow. So interesting because, it's when we're doing the things that aren't aligned with us, right? And we're not even aware at that point what is aligned. Because I think that as we evolve in our soul journey, we become more in tune with our soul and our journey and what aligned or what was okay, because I don't think it ever aligned, but what was okay 20 years ago is just not. In some cases, what was okay 5 years ago is not okay now.
Yeah.
We
evolve.
100%. And I think that when we do evolve, I'm going to, imitate, Kim Woods and just go, la, the sky clears up, the sun comes out, the angels sing, whatever, all the things happen. And it's this giant, it really is an awakening because it's like oh, yeah, none of that stuff's okay anymore. Not, none of that's okay. And a lot of this stuff is okay. This is cool. This person aligns with my values because I think it becomes a values thing. It's a soul thing, but I think our soul also kind of, I won't say dictates, but I think it also, I just had the word and it left. It also, what's the word? How did I just lose that word?
Resonates?
Thank you. It resonates, and it resonates deeply. It's not like something that's just like a very surface thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
when we get in touch with our soul and with what we're aligned with, it goes really deep. And
Mm-hmm.
surface stuff that was okay, like working with people who did surface stuff and then needing deeper modalities, right? Like needing deeper um, guidance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened to me. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I need to know how things work. Like I'm very, like when it comes to stuff like, ritual, some people will meditate. I need to do. I
Mm-hmm.
need to put the oil on the candle and then, like do all the things. And I'm like, hee 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 hee. And then I have fun. And then I write on bay leaves. And I do like all the things because I'm very tactile and I like to
Mm-hmm.
do stuff. And it's like when I do it, and I'm almost like giddy because like when I do it, it's like, like that candle will burn out, right? And I have all my oils over there. And as soon as that thing is ready to die, it's like I have the candle out for like a day warming up because it's a little cold under there and pull it out. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get to do this thing again. There's just certain things that I never even thought about. But because I like to know how things work, that's the stuff for me that aligns. And people who get me know that, right? So it's like working, with Kim Woods. She knows that I like doing. So she'll give me stuff to do. She'll be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
do that. In running my team, it's the same thing. I have an OBM who runs my team, but I still oversee everything, right? And I have to make sure that everything is, running clearly. So I will look and go, okay, how is this working? This is my model. This person probably shouldn't be communicated with unless it's me. And then I start like seeing all these like different things. Then I get, into the doing because I like the doing piece. But it just as far as things that align and I guess people that align, for me that's changed drastically in the last probably 6 years.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
Because
Yeah,
we evolve.
we change and then something happens and we're on to the next lesson. Something else has emerged. Yeah.
I like that lesson because that's what it is.
Has been for me. Yeah, I have a friend who likes to laugh at how like I'm an energy healer and I talk about woo topics and spirit and all kinds of things now. And she's like, who is this person? Because apparently, and I don't remember this to the extent that she does, but she says that when I was in grad school for the first year, I was very anti woo woo. I was very like, what is all this new age garbage? Which is so funny to me because I was the kid who had like the crystal on her necklace. I was like always drawn to tumbled rocks. And I had a book about out of body experiences, like how to create out of body experiences. And I was reading Jonathan Livingston Seagull. So
That is one of my favorite books to this day.
Yeah. I think Illusions is in my, that was my first like woo-woo Bible, basically. It was the thing that helped me better understand or like validated how I felt like I understood the world. So yeah, to this day, I still love seagulls because of that, because of Jonathan Livingston Seagull. So I've been this way a long time without really having any place to apply it. And I guess as I got older and got into my mid-20s, I had become a little bit cynical or something. I was very like, meh, because another part of me is extremely pragmatic and is like, let's get real world stuff. Like, let's live in the real world. Let's make sure that we're not
the logical part, right?
Let's not spiritually bypass, right? And let's see things for how they actually are. And so I'm a very strong blend of both. So, but her experience of me in the beginning was mostly the practical part. and then I had this kind of awakening, or this like resurgence of my my spiritual path, I guess we'll call it.
Mhm.
And so then by the end of year 2, I'm just like, I'm an energy healer, and I do vocal toning. And she's like, what happened?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh my, it's so funny because I think kind of the same thing happened for me with my friends, because I was very, I guess you could say pragmatic, but for me, I've always known that I had my gifts, we'll call them, right? But I always suppressed them because I didn't want to know. Like it was too much responsibility.
Hmm.
When I was like 21, I predicted a fire. Not predicted it, but I dreamt about it. So I guess it was like a kind of like a premonition, right? Like I had this dream that I went to my friend's house, that we used to go to this bar every Friday night, and I would meet her at her house, and then we would drive to the bar, and then that would, whatever, we'd go in. And it was a Wednesday night, and I had this dream that went to her house. We went to the bar, and we get to the bar, and there's like a fire behind, the bar in one of the houses.
Yeah.
And I ran into the vestibule, and there used to be a payphone, right? Or there, at the time there was, but in my dream, the payphone was gone. That's how long ago this was. And so I ran into the bar, and I said, June, can I call 911? There's, a fire in one of the houses behind the bar. And she's like, yeah. And I called 911, and, lady, was like, 911. I said, yes, I'm a Club M&M, and, there's a fire behind one of, in one of the houses behind the bar. And so she said, oh yeah. And I don't remember the address, but we'll just say, 123 Salem Street. And she said, we're on it, but thank you so much for reporting it. And I said, no problem. So 2 days later, that Friday, I go to Terry's house, and we drive to the bar, and there's a freaking fire behind the bar. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I dreamt about this. Like, I know the address. So I called, the payphone was there because it wasn't a dream. I called 911 and I said, hey, I'm a Club M&M, and there's, a fire. I said, and I believe that it's at 123 Salem, but I'm not 100. And so she said, that's exactly where it is. And she said, thank you so much for alerting us, but we're on it already. And I was like, okay. And I hung up, and Terry didn't like woo, and it just followed me like everywhere. Right. And I was just like, go away. I don't want this. And so she just like looked at me, and, she was just like, seriously. And I was like, I don't ask for this. So I just kept suppressing it. So for years and years, I suppressed it. And it always came up, like weird stuff would happen, and, it would like kind of like knock and be like, hey, I'm here. And I was like, yeah, I don't want you to go away. And then 5 years ago, when we bought this house, it became very apparent that I need to start leaning into my gifts. And it's like a long story, but, and I did. And it just became literally overnight, like a way of life. Like everything just clicked, and it made sense. And it was like, oh, okay. And the responsibility part wasn't scary anymore. It was more like, okay, this makes sense, but I don't see things anymore, which is weird. Because I think my mind is more of a feeling thing, and kind of guiding people on their paths, basically. So all that other stuff that maybe was to get my attention isn't there, or it's still suppressed. I don't know. I'm not sure. But, what the things that are needed and the things that mean something are what has emerged.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've heard a number of people and tell stories about like suppressing their woo, or having some element of it and kind of being like, oh yeah, I just have predictive dreams, whatever. Right. It's like, okay. I feel some similarity to what you're talking about. I didn't think I was suppressing my gifts at that time, but later, even though I was really interested in stories from like psychic mediums, like I always felt drawn to some part of that.
Mm.
And I like went to shows and I read books by John Edward and other people who do that work.
John Edward, Life After Life, or no, what was his book?
Crossing Over.
Crossing Over. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it was. No, that's not it. Never mind. I'm thinking of something else. There was this book that I read when I was a kid, and it was about, I thought it was like The Other Side or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember. But it was basically about how his son had died, and his son helped him write the book. And I can't find it anywhere. And I'm like, did I make this up? But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I bet you could use ChatGPT to find it at this point.
And my Cara would know.
Yeah.
Because that's Cara.
So I was, I was really drawn to just like psychic mediumship was something that like, at least I could make sense of what they're doing, as opposed to energy healing, where it's like, what in the world is that? But psychic mediumship's like, okay, people are dead and they come and talk to you. Like, that seems more straightforward. Even though I was drawn to it, the few times when it would show up for me, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not. And because it would be stuff like I'd be staying at a friend's house in New Mexico that I hadn't been to before. And I wake up in the middle or like early in the morning and there's somebody standing over us. And not in a way where I was like, but more just like, well, there's somebody here. And then kind of still being sleepy and going to sleep. And then later being like, that doesn't make sense. There was no one else in this home, or, just seeing people like going to an event and kind of falling asleep while sitting in a circle of like a workshop while people were talking but not quite being asleep, kind of seeing different people in the same chairs in the same space we were in. For me, one of my indicators, if something is a dream versus a visitation, let's say, my dreams don't ever happen in the physical reality that I'm in. So I don't dream like if it's like, oh, we were at home and then there were snakes. The home is never my actual house visually in my dreams. It's always like, that experience where you're like, we were at home, but it didn't look like our home. Wherever I am in dreams, it's not a place that looks like the place I am or places I've been. It'll be an allegory. It'll be something similar, like a house that's our home. Whenever I have a visitation, it is the physical reality of the space I'm in. That's how I know it's different. Like, somebody who's passed on when I was like napping on a couch. And then I, in my sort of twilight state, felt them come and sit down on the couch next to me and turn to me and go, hey. And I went, and sat up and they weren't there. Like, so I had conversations with spirit to be like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do psychic mediumship. I don't really know why, honestly, at this point. I think because I was so busy doing other stuff, I don't mind if people's passed on, if somebody passed on wants to come and give me a message while I'm already working with somebody, that's okay. But I didn't want my peace interrupted, I think is what it was. And when you're a medium, I think they just kind of are around. And like I always think of Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost.
Oh my God. That is like probably one of my favorite movies in the world because she was just so good.
And I think psychic mediums have to learn to like really make intense boundaries to be like, I am not at work right now, and I just was like, yeah, I don't want that. So yeah, it doesn't show up a ton for me anymore. And the same thing with predictive stuff. I've been very strict with spirit saying, unless I can do something to change it, I don't want to know. If I am supposed to change it or prepare for it, please tell me. Otherwise, I don't want to know.
That's interesting. See, and I never had, well, I shouldn't say that I never had, that I never had mediumship. I think that for me, it was very, I think the only spirit that I actually saw was my grandmother. And it was the night of my, I don't know, I was like 14 years old. And I just remember, seeing her, and I ran into my mom's room. I was 14. I ran into my mom's room and I was like, Mom, I just saw Grandma. And she like whacked me, because that's what my mom always used to do, right? Well, it was, I know. I'm not saying it was okay, but it was the 70s and whatever. Don't you lie. And I was like, why the hell would I lie about that, right? So I described what she was wearing, and she like shot up in bed. And she was like, how do you know that? And I was like, because she was just in my room trying to give me something. And there's no, I would have known, but the outfit that I saw her was what she was buried in. And I was not at the funeral. So, and it was when she was going to hand me something that I freaked out and ran out of the room. So, and I saw her, and then, I mean, I've seen others. I shouldn't say that was the only one. I had a really freaky thing happen, upstate New York in a hotel. But again, it was just like, I don't want, like, I would just suppress everything. I don't want to know this stuff. And then I think one of the most harrowing things was, because I in my mind's eye, I'll see stuff. And a friend of mine that I used to work with up in Chicago rented this house, and there were ghosts in it or whatever. And my friend Aviva is like, oh, Iris can, she feels stuff and stuff. So she, like, she'll walk somewhere and the hair on the back of her neck will stand up. And so she'll be able to feel it. And I'm like, why are you telling people this? Like, I don't want to do this. And I walked in the house, and there was some evil shit that was going on. Mm-hmm. So then there was a Wiccan, and this was before any of my woo stuff, right? Who lived next door, who he had the biggest crush on. She had like red hair, and he was like, you're going to fall in love with her. And I'm like, I just want whatever the hell is in your house out. So I'm not falling in love with anybody, right? So, we went in, and I would go into the room and be like, ooh, this is what I'm feeling here. And she would have like almost like what they have in church, like the little metal thing with the incense. Mm-hmm. And she was, doing that thing. So
she was smudging. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we cleared the house, and it was the first time I ever did anything like that. And then I drove back and forth over the Des Plaines River, because they said if you cross over river or water, that spirits can't follow you or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just went and did that probably about 10 times. Like, I went over, and then I went back over the road. Went over, and I went back over the road.
I think rituals have power if you put power in them. Well, do you know what I mean? I don't think there's any one hard and fast rule about dealing with esoteric spiritual stuff. Some things work for some people, and it's really about finding the rituals that work for you, and putting power into it. Like, well, as our friend J.U. would say, you co-create with the divine.
Oh, that's what we were just talking about today in our session. Like, it's true, because because back in the day we signed like the Akashic record, we signed, a contract, right? And there's no contract anymore. Like, we've all outgrown those, and now we are co-creators. So whatever,
okay,
it's like the wolf and the, what is that thing? It's like you give it's like one of my favorite parables, and I can't remember it now. It's like the wolf and something, and which one, the one that you feed is the one.
Oh, the two wolves that live inside you.
Thank you. Yes. So there's the good wolf and and that's what I think is going on now. And I think I'm not going to get into politics or anything, but I think that there are those of us who are feeding the good wolf, and there are those of us that are feeding the not so good wolf.
Which is
And
always true.
oh yeah, 100%. I just hope that the good wolf, reigns. But so what I find really interesting, I think about, all of this is when we evolve and we come into who we're meant to be. There's this certain peace that comes with it. And I think that once that happens, then the people that we meet are very like-minded. I cannot tell you that over the last 5 years, I would say 99% of the people that I have met are woo. Or woo adjacent. Like I have not met one person. Now, people that I've known before, yeah, but like people who have newly come into my life, everybody. And it's just like, seriously? But like attracts like. So that's, so a question that I try to ask all the time is what, because this is about entrepreneurship, and I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that a lot of the ones that I know are woo anyway. But there are a lot of people out there that are, listening to us and they're thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, right? What is a piece of advice that you could give somebody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
I have two pieces of advice. Don't quit your day job.
Yes.
So, have a way to make consistent money, because entrepreneurship, starting a business, takes 3 to 5 years to be sustainable, like make you enough money to live. That's a long time. So that was the wisdom when I started my company, and I thought I was smarter and more charismatic and was going to not need that timeline. Nope, I don't think there's exceptions, unless you start with a great deal of capital and really amazing connections who can just, make you run. That's not where I started from. So if you're starting from zero, 3 to 5 years. The second thing is fail faster. That's my advice to every new entrepreneur. Everyone's so afraid of making something and having it fail. And you and I both know that you have to iterate in order to make something work. So put your alpha version and your beta version out as soon as possible. Let it fail, as it probably will. Learn from it. Make the next version. Fail faster.
I like that a lot. Yeah, because the sooner you get that puppy over with.
Well, and it will keep happening, but
yes, it will continue to happen.
Entrepreneurs are people who have the ability to tolerate risk and learn from and adapt to failure. Well, like if you need it to be perfect the first time, you're not going to make it.
No, and I think that when you get past that first one, not that it makes the others easier, but I think it makes the others easier to take. Like it's not.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, because I think the first failure is like, oh my God, I suck. It's all right, internalized. It's like, it's my fault.
Nobody wants what I have, blah, blah, blah. Like entrepreneurship challenges it will bring up all of your stuff.
Yep.
Like everything. I used to run a podcast years ago when I first started a company. It was before we even had podcasts. It was on Blog Talk Radio. So I used to have one of those, and it was called Emotions in Small Business, because people like to say that feelings and business are totally different spaces, and they are not. No. Starting a business will bring up your stuff, all your rejection issues, all of your abandonment issues, all your perfectionism and your people pleasing will show up big time when you start a business.
Well, I always say that if you really want to know who you are, become an entrepreneur.
There you go.
because of that, right? Like, it just,
Yeah.
um, but what I mean is that, that first time that you fail, and to me, it's like first attempt in learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, you fail and it sucks and you internalize everything and it's all your fault. And then you succeed and then you fail again.
Mm-hmm.
But because you've already failed once, you learn something new. It's like, okay, maybe it's not me, maybe it's my
Mm-hmm.
product, or maybe it's not my product, maybe it's whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pick yourself up and you move forward, because that's what we do. And then you fail again.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, it makes it easier because it's like each time we learn something new, and I'm not even call it failing, right? I'm just going to say that, there's a misstep. You make a misstep. You make a, something happens and it's like, oh shit, I'm not going to do that again. So we learn. They're lessons.
That's how you get wisdom.
I mean, 100%. And at my age. So what is the resentment trap?
So I went through all my blog posts and pulled some titles that I thought would be fun to talk about.
Okay.
The resentment trap. Oh boy. So for anybody who is feeling, who gets resentful or holds on to resentment, there is some kind of feeling internally that says, I'm going to keep holding this grudge until this other person changes, right? Like it's holding on to this sense of injustice and continuing to put bad energy in, like feeding that bad wolf, thinking that that's going to somehow produce change. And it isn't. Resenting people, resenting someone or a situation, all it does is stop you from moving through the grieving process so that you can get to a place of acceptance and moving on.
Wow. Interesting. And I think that when we hold on to those grudges, like for me, mindfulness is what helped me let those go, because I control what pisses me off and for how long. Where I didn't before, where something would piss me off and I'd be pissed off for like a week. Hell, in 2016, I think I was pissed off for 2 years, until my wife was like, you are angry all the time. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, you are angry all the time. I was like, no, I'm not. And then I was like, oh yeah, I am. And really negative, and not really, realizing how negative.
Yeah.
And so when 2020 hit, I started mindfulness and therapy again, because COVID, I just couldn't, it just hit me in a way that it just blindsided me. And, after almost a year in therapy, it was like, oh, I know why it was freaking me out, because I couldn't control it. I couldn't control what other people were doing. And it's not that I'm a control freak, but if I can't control something that you are doing that is going to harm me or my family, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And then the biggest like aha for me, when I knew that, I wasn't practicing mindfulness. I was mindfulness, was my wife's tire blew, and she works in steel. So she has to go to a mill, and she's a supervisor. So she goes on the floor with the guys and she gets greasy, and I don't like her driving my car. Let's just put it that way. I like my car clean and all that stuff. So we had to switch cars because her tire blew. I'm not going to let her drive on a donut, So there were towels and everything on, like just making sure that, like, if I could have put like the old plastic the grandma had on the thing, I would have done that. And so her tire came in, and the guy calls me up and said, "Hey, this is so and so, at blank blank tire. Your tire's in." I said, "Great." I said, "Do I need to make an appointment?" He said, "No, you can come in now." And I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Because I know it's a long wait." And he goes, "No, you're fine. And it should take about 15 minutes. I was like, "Great." I'm about 25 minutes away. It's not like it's down the block, right? So I get there, and there's a bunch of people in the room, in the waiting room. And I said, hi, I'm calling for, Heather and, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, yeah, it's about 3 hours. And I said, I just called.
Yeah.
About half hour ago, and you told me it was a 15-minute wait to come now. He said, well, yeah. He said, but sometimes this happens. I said, so when I asked if I needed an appointment and you told me no, that it would only be 15 minutes, I did not make an appointment. And now you're telling me I have to wait 3 hours. I don't have 3 hours. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You don't know what okay. And this is definitely universe going, I'm dangling this in front of you. We want to see, I want to see how you handle this. So I go, can I would like to speak to a manager. And he goes, I am one of the managers. So I said, of course you fucking are. Like, there was no filter at that point. It was just done. I was just like, great. I said, I'm not waiting here 3 hours. I said, so can I just make an appointment for tomorrow? And he said, sure. Like, I wanted to, like, the old me probably would have like throat punched him at that point. I would have just been like, son of a, whatever. So I make the appointment for the next day, and I leave, and I get in the car, and I'm like, and I'm, trying to be careful because I'm driving Heather's car, and I don't want to do anything to it. So I can't peel out. I'm on a freaking donut, so I can't even, whatever. So I'm like, I get in the car, and I'm like, it gets 90 seconds. He's getting 90 seconds of my time, and that's it. 2 minutes pass. I'm like, fine. He gets until I get home. So I let myself be pissed and get everything out because, he like completely disrespected me. He disrespected my time. He lied to me. When I got there, he was like, oh, well, tough shit. And I was pissed. And by the time I got home, I saw my driveway and I was like, okay. And I let it go. Yeah. It was gone. Nice. It was amazing. It was like, that is freaking amazing. So I told my mindfulness coach, like I sent her a text. She's in London. So she didn't respond until the next day, but I was like, oh my God, guess what I just did? And it was like this whole thing. And that, going back to power, right? Owning your power, because that's huge. Being able to be like, okay, I am not going to be this mad for this long.
You know how there's like kind of a slang saying of, I live rent free in that person's mind.
Yes.
Like, let's not have any involuntary tenants in our own mind. Like that. Right? I don't want anyone living in here rent free.
No.
I'm not interested, and I'm not interested in showing people or making them agree with me. Of course, some part of me wants that, but I also know it's not worth the cost and it rarely pays off. So, let me just evict all of these non-paying tenants from my head.
Love it.
Because they're not usually thinking about me at all. That was part of the problem with that guy, right? He wasn't thinking about you. He wasn't disrespecting you. He just wasn't thinking about you at all.
Not at all. And when I left, he might have said, oh my God, what a crazy whatever. And then it was done.
Yeah. And then he didn't think about you at all because probably his whole day is full of people who are annoyed with him because people are only at the tire shop because something went wrong with their day.
Right.
And they clearly aren't running their schedule well. So they're having this experience constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at this list. I'm trying to think of, because there's so many good ones on here.
If anybody wants to see any of these list of questions, you can go to rachelalexandria.com/blog.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Little pitch for it. These are all things that I talk about in my weekly newsletter that I then turn into my blog articles.
So why is don't get cocky terrible advice?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Did you grow up? I mean, it sounds like maybe you did based on the story you told about your mother already. But it feels like growing up in the 70s and 80s and maybe the 90s, the boomer parents seemed to think that they had to keep us humble. Like, so I grew up hearing, don't be cocky, don't be too big for your britches, that kind of thing.
That
right?
one, the big for your britches one.
Yeah. And it's like, what if I'm just actually smart and powerful? Like, it's great to say, it's important to also know that everyone else matters and has meaning.
Yes.
That's part of the point of humility, but not, don't be cocky, because I mean, I think especially women and young girls grew up hearing that advice, which is really like, don't tout your accomplishments. And what happens when you get into the workforce or when you need to sell something as an entrepreneur?
Yep.
Now you have this behavior pattern that says touting your accomplishments is bad, is morally bad. That's terrible for a place where, whether you're in the workforce or whether you work for yourself, you have to sell yourself.
Oh, 100%.
You have to be
you have to believe in yourself.
Confident, and you have to believe in yourself. So you're like fighting this behavior pattern and this thought process that you were trained on from an early age.
Right.
That's why it's bad advice.
And it really is bad advice.
It's okay to like be confident in yourself and also assess risks. That's better advice, right? Be confident in yourself and seek out conflicting data or like things that like confront or challenge you so that you don't only get high on your own sauce.
Right. Well, and you can be humble, right? Like you can know your shit and be humble about it.
Sure.
I mean, for me, it's like very, so my word for the year was shine.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually don't do words of the year. It just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what does that mean? And I knew that I wanted to do public speaking. So, I'm doing public speaking. The one that I'm really excited about is in September. I'm speaking at the Women in Steel conference.
Nice.
And it's on, I think it's called, the bullshit we tell ourselves, how to, I always forget it. And it's like, I've written this. If I tell you how many times I've like read this and written it and gone over it, like a lesson in embracing authenticity or something like that.
Nice.
And it's important, especially for like women in steel, because they work in a male dominated industry. And it just says bullshit keynote, which is like hilarious. I love that. Like, this is a bullshit keynote. But anyway, so, but the importance of it, I think, is that when we, put out to the universe, like what we want, and when we really want it, I believe it's already happened. 100%. So the shining for me, and then it was like the podcast. So all of a sudden I have, influencers on, and I have, PR agents reaching out to be on and I don't advertise. Like I don't advertise. None of that. Like people are just finding me, and that's been really interesting. And it's just kind of like, So then Kim Woods again was like, I'm in this, group, with her as well. And, that she runs. And we were talking about shine, and she said, so you're speaking and you're, the podcast is getting noticed and all this stuff. And she said, and you're shining. And she said, how about if we put a different narrative on it? And I went, what? And she said, how about shining is being the authority? And so what would the 3 words be, how you would identify yourself? And I said, well, I am an authority in my field. I'm a mentor and I'm an advisor. And she was like, bingo. She goes, now I want you to use that. She goes, in a podcast post, in a whatever. She goes, I want you to start owning that. And I said, she's right. And I think that, words have different meanings, right? So it could mean one thing in one moment, and then when you apply it to other things, it can kind of change that. And so I love the whole, like, I'm looking at all of these and it's like, okay, this all makes sense. But the cocky and not owning our own zones of genius, I think, is very detrimental, because it's making us hold back and suppress ourselves. So,
when I was a kid and the teacher would ask, who wants to read the next paragraph out loud? I always wanted to. I would have read the whole book if she'd let me. But I heard in my head, don't be cocky. Don't be too big for your britches. Make sure that you give the other kids a chance, right?
Yep.
And I'll bet you every single teacher I had throughout grade school and junior high and high school probably didn't know that I would have been thrilled to be called on, that I would be happy to volunteer, because I thought I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to leave room. Yeah, it took a long time for me. I think a couple insightful teachers saw some of my leadership potential and kind of gave me little ins, but I didn't know it was even okay to ask. It took a long time. It took, the nice thing about admin assistant work is that you kind of end up taking leadership on a lot of things, because you're managing up, right? Most admin assistants, if they're good, they're managing up. My leadership didn't really come into fruition until much later in my life, because of me being very sensitive to other people and thinking I shouldn't be big because I don't want them to feel bad. I don't want to take up too much space, not understanding that most people want someone to lead, especially if they're a good-hearted person.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love all that. And it goes so fast. So where can people find you?
They can find me at rachelalexandria.com. And I have other socials links. I'm either at Rachel R. Alexandria, probably on Instagram, and I think YouTube. But yeah, that stuff I'm sure that you'll put with the things that get sent out. But yeah, rachelalexandria.com there's a lot of stuff on my website, books I've written, blog posts galore. Coming up is Pocket Coach, my chatbot based assistant for people. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share with myself or me. I hate when people say myself, and I just did it with me and my audience, and Kofi and our audience, because Kofi's in the back and he just gleans so much from all of this. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me and my audience. And the last question that I always ask all of our guests is, what lights your fire?
Oh, so many things light my fire. I love being in the ocean. I love boogie boarding. And, so it's kind of like ironic, or not ironic, but not what you would expect. Water lights my fire. And I think, being the person that my high performers come to, like, that they feel like they have someone, even though it's lonely at the top, that they can trust, that makes them be able to get through all of the hard stuff that life is throwing, especially right now, that like makes my heart feel aflame.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hang on one second. I'm going to say goodbye. I'll be right back. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out an hour plus. I hope that you learned some cool information from Rachel today. I did. I always do whenever I talk to her, though. So I just thank you for hanging out and, taking time out of your day to spend with me and my guests. And like, share, subscribe, leave a review. If you've learned anything or if you've taken anything away from this episode, leave it in the comments below. And I appreciate all of you. Just keep the reviews coming, keep all of that coming so our numbers start going up. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.